Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our program, Ask the Professor. Today we have Professor Brinson, and he is an educator, an author of several books ranging from food and nutrition to hermeneutics and the study of religion. He is also an astute businessman with several years of experience. He has also traveled the world. He has taught abroad and learned much. Welcome, Professor Brinson.
Thank you, JR, for those kind and wonderful words of introduction. What is the subject matter? Someone had informed me earlier.
My first question for you, Professor, is what is the real difference between spirituality and religion?
Very interesting subject matter. Religion and spirituality are very similar in terms of what they are seeking. Religion seeks some higher power. Spirituality also seeks some higher power. They're similar in that respect. But they're different. One of the primary differences in the two is that religion tends to take the attention of the person outside of himself. The person goes outside of himself in the sense that he takes the most valuable assets that he has, which is human attention. The attention is the most valuable asset inside this human body. The attention is flowing through these 9 doors in the body, mingling with the material world, the physical world. How does attention flow? Through these 9 doors. We are under the illusion that this physical body is our cells. Actually, we sit inside this cell, inside this body, looking out of 9 doors. You have 2 doors at the eye level. You call them eyeballs. They're actually windows, which capture most of the attention and it mingles with the material world and the physical world. You have 2 earlobes. They pick up the sounds and noises in the material world, and it captures our attention. You have 2 nostrils. They pick up the smell, the fragrance, the different odors, whether good odors or bad odors, of the physical world through our nostrils. Then you have a mouth. That's another door, which picks up the food. You talk through that mouth. You speak with other human beings. You communicate with different parts of the world, and your attention flows through this hole, the mouth. How many holes have I counted so far, JR?
That's 7 holes.
Yes, you're correct. But then you have one at the lower part of the body in the reproductive area, and then you have one at the buttocks, in which you defecate out of. How many doors have I counted so far now?
9.
9. There's a 10th door in this body, which very few people know about. If they're in the Christian religion, regardless, all the religions speak of this. But if they're Christian, they talk about knock. Christ in the Bible, in a section in the chapter, one of the chapters of the gospel, he says, knock and the door shall open. But we don't know where it is. We tend to think that's just a metaphorical statement he's making. But it's a real door inside this body. And the attention has to withdraw itself to the area of spirituality. All the attention now is being occupied by the material world and its material creation. It's flowing throughout these 9 doors, mingling with this material universe. Christ in Luke, I believe it's the 17th chapter, 21st verse, he says, nor here nor there. The kingdom of God is within you. Yeah. What does he mean? Not even the Pope of the Catholic Church. Very few people understand the meaning of this. Not scholars, not people who study the scriptures and they consider themselves expert. They don't really know what he means. They're thinking he's using a metaphorical statement, making an allegorical expression. He's talking about something real. But we don't know how to use his attention and go inside this body. We use the attention outwardly into the material world. Years ago, before there was any inventions of airplanes, telephone, rockets, all kinds of TVs, radios, and gadgets. These inventions came from a human being concentrating his attention upon the materiality of this world. One human being accidentally made a discovery of some form of radios and TVs and things like this. Let me give you an example. Thomas Edison, by the way, he was a vegetarian. He dropped out of school in the 3rd grade. He had a problem with studying, but he had great imagination. And when he grew up, he got into concentrating his attention on electricity. That was one of his favorite subject matters. He put attention on trying to come up with how to create light. And he experimented several times. He got frustrated because he was trying to take his attention and come up with a discovery which he imagined could be produced. He put his attention on electricity and he put it in a glass container and he failed over 10,000 times. But he didn't want to give up. The man had a ridiculous, almost mad type of concentration of attention. His attention was so mad, you can call it monomaniacal concentration. He put his attention on this tube, and finally he had a strange experience. An aha moment came. Something took place in his head. You can say it was some kind of knowledge. And he decided, maybe I should take all of the air out of this bulb. And the light stayed on, because before then it would come on for a little while and then flicker out, which frustrated him. Once he put it in this vacuum tube, it stayed on for long periods of time. And that's how all of us get light today in America and throughout the world. He is considered the founder of light bulbs, and all kinds of other gadgets came from that. So it was the concentration of his attention which produced that knowledge in this world. Yeah.
Professor, how does that relate to religion and spirituality? What is the real difference between those two subject matters?
Okay. The primary difference between those two subject matters, I'm glad you focused in on this. I try to simplify it for the audience as well as for yourself. The attention is flowing outwardly, and we learn to concentrate by going to school. We learn from our mothers, and they said, be quiet, study, read. And when a child is struggling with reading, he's trying to take his attention off the distractions of this world and put it on the pages of that book. And as he forces himself to concentrate, he learns to read. He loses a lot of the distraction. There are many distractions. He may want to play outside. He may want to watch TV. He may want to run and jump rope, or she may want to jump rope. He may want to go have fun. But when he takes this precious asset called attention, he learns how to read and he learns how to enjoy it. The boredom starts leaving him, and he can't take his attention after he reaches a certain point off of learning. But it's outward concentration. Christ was a spiritual being. He would tell his disciples how to go inside this body. He said, it's simple. All you do is take this precious asset, which you call human attention, and concentrate it upon itself. If you
How can you concentrate attention upon itself?
You take the attention, and as he says in one of the scriptures, I believe it was in Matthew 6:23. He said, if thy eye become single, thy whole body shall become full of light. How do you singularize attention? In another section in the Bible, in Matthew's, he says you must learn to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, and soul. Again, he's talking about maniacal concentration of attention, which means you close your eyes. Sometimes you can do it without the eyes being closed. And you have to practice being unconscious of everything, including of your body, without going to sleep. If you can achieve that most difficult and arduous task of not going to sleep and concentrating attention, where you lose awareness of the physical body, you have a strange experience of that door opening, and you feel at first like you're dying. That will be a feeling. And you actually will die, but you can come back into the body. So he was teaching his disciples a strange type of worship inside the body, which is a long subject matter, which I can go into at a later date.
Let me ask you another question, Professor. Different ministers and priests, they have different interpretations of the Bible and the different scriptures. What would your interpretation be?
Well, the interpretation would be to find someone who has experiential awareness. If you go to someone who has intellectual knowledge, and these priests, rabbis, imams, and so-called religious experts, they've gone to school, they've gone to the best of schools. They studied their holy books, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran, the Bible, these holy books, they put their attention upon it. And a teacher has also graduated from the best school, teaching them in these seminary places. And they are studying the scriptures, but the scriptures can have so many different meanings. And these experts, they gotten their learning, and they come up with what they consider to be their interpretation, which is based on an opinionation of what they think the scriptures mean. They have no experience because they can graduate from the best schools in the world and study and come out the valedictorian of their class and still not have spiritual experience. Where do they go to get spiritual experiences? They don't know. Their attention is still riveted upon books and upon the outward expression of this world. Spirituality, not to interrupt you, spirituality takes the attention in another direction altogether. Not now. Religion takes the attention outside of this body. Spirituality takes it inside this body where this door opens and you start having real spiritual experiences.
How does one deal with the dilemma of relying upon interpretation of the Holy Scriptures given by priests and ministers? They're simply giving their opinion on these subjects. So is there a way, some validation tool, some proof, as you would say?
Oh, you're saying something extremely intriguing. You're challenging me now. But let me see if I can simplify even this question. When you say validation, evidential, proof, the attention has several features about itself. When you're looking for validation and proof in this world, the attention can be used as a probing device. It can be used as a unraveling instrument. It can be used as a validational mechanism. It can be used as a investigative tool.
It has this many capabilities?
Yes. Attention has many facets. Even though it's one thing in your body, it can do several things. So say if you want to investigate something and see if it's true, we can investigate books, we can investigate other people, and if they've not had any spiritual experiences, you can just believe them. And you can get caught in the dilemma of intellectual misinterpretation and think that it's right. But if you go inside this body with attention, validation exists there. There are two ways to get validation of the books and what they're saying. If you concentrate attention, you can achieve it through that methodology, which I said prior to you asking that question.
Yes.
Or you can achieve it another way, which most people probably have heard of, but not gone too deep in the investigation of this. The first way that most people have had this experience is by dying physically. Somebody shoot them, and they die. And they see their body lying on the ground, bleeding, and they're shocked. Because they're in another body, they're not really dead. But they're in a body that is invisible to most of the people in this world. And they move around their body. Some of them decide to follow the ambulance to the hospital, trying to see what's going on. And when the body is rushed to the emergency room, and the doctors do CPR and madly trying to resuscitate them, they see this and they hear all of the conversation. Some of them get bored with this, and they just float through the wall. They can go through materiality like a ghost. I don't know if you've seen the movie Ghost, where Patrick Swayze, Whoopi Goldberg, and Demi Moore played in that movie in the 80s. That movie is based upon real scientific research, even though they created it like a fairy tale. The people who did the research dealt with studies of people who had clinical death. And in America, according to recent research, over 20 million Americans of different racial groups different belief patterns, have had clinical death experiences and have been resuscitated. And they talk this way. They talk of being out of the body. They talk of going to visit different cities.
Yes, but Professor, how do you verify their experience? Because they're witnessing something that nobody can provide proof for.
It can be imagination. When they get out of this body, they discover that their senses of seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling suddenly improves and multiplies. So they can move through space. They can travel. You can be in New York. There was one person who was in New York in the emergency room out of the body watching the doctors trying to resuscitate him. And he decided to leave New York and go to Atlanta, Georgia, to visit his auntie. And she happened to be in the driveway at that time. And there was another lady who had hit her car, and there was a police writing a ticket. And she heard all of the conversation, this person. It was a he. And when he heard the conversation, he tried to talk to her. She couldn't hear him, just like in the movie Ghost. He tried to touch her. His hand would go through her body. He was trying to capture her attention, but he was in a different dimension. Of course, it was a lower dimension. It was not a high dimension. He was still in the physical world, like a ghost. And so he heard the conversation. And when he was resuscitated, he suddenly got back in the physical body. He was so excited about this experience. He knew it was real. But how did he communicate this reality to another person? He told the nurses and the doctors what had happened. They looked upon him with skepticism and said he may need some more medication. And
did they investigate?
Yes, one of the nurses got curious. He said, call my auntie up and ask her what happened. She'll tell you that she has a red car, and the car that hit hers was blue, and there was a police who wrote her a ticket not too long ago. She wrote up today. Call her up. This is her number, and let me talk to her too. So the nurse called her up and said, I got your nephew in the hospital. She said, what's wrong with him? He said, did you have a police write you a ticket today? Yes, I did. Your car is red? Yes, I just bought it a week ago. How would he know that?
Wow.
She said, well, let me talk to him. So she turned the phone over to the nephew, and the nephew said, yes, I died, but I'm back, and I want to tell you about it when you come to New York, or if I come down there. I'll tell you all about the experience. I don't want to tap the phone because I'm still trying to recover fully. She was shocked. The nurse who called was shocked, and she knew that this had to be real. How can he know this stuff? This was happening in the physical world at the time in which he was saying. There was no way for him to know except to actually be there.
Wow, Professor. That is beyond.
Yes. So there are two ways to achieve this state of going into another dimension, of withdrawing attention from this physical body. At the time of death, your attention is forced out of the body. It's forced to withdraw. And when you withdraw from the physical body, normally if it's trauma, stroke, gunshot wound, most people experience, I don't want to go. They experience great pain and anguish. But once they're out of the body, they discover that they are not extinguished, that they are more alive now than they were when they were in the physical body. Their definition of aliveness is dependent upon the intensity of the senses operating. And the senses become more refined. You can see better. You can hear better. Every 5 senses get intensified. And you discover things and encounter things that you can not possibly imagine in that other dimension.
So what you're saying is how this relates to the scripture in the Bible when Jesus made that comment that the kingdom of God is within. You saying that these people are witnessing the kingdom of God?
Yes. As a matter of fact, in Luke 9, chapter 9, 27 verse.
Yes.
Christ says to his disciples, who were fishermen, ignorant people, uneducated people, because they didn't go to school at that time. They could not understand what he was saying. Even today we have a hard time understanding this concept. But with the study of clinical death, some people are beginning to grasp the concept of dying while living. Dying while living is a process that you die and come back and go to work tomorrow. Or you resuscitated by the doctors and you wake up and discover that you have died earlier while in some accident or because of some gunshot wound. So in those days, Christ was telling them the kingdom of God is within. The light of the body is the eye. If you can take your eye and singularize it, singularize your attention, the door will open if you knock in the right area of the body. That door is right behind these two eyes. If you were to go behind these two eyes, maybe just an inch and a half or so, that's where that door is located.
How do you singularize attention?
You have to put it on one particular thing, and that's where the teacher comes in. He'll teach you how to do this, but it has to be a teacher with experiences. And you can't just meet a teacher on your own. You got to get lucky to meet such a being. You can go around seeking, and you'll get frustrated over a period of time. And because these teachers themselves don't know how to go inside. Where do they go to school when they leave the physical school? Where do they go to be taught how to dematerialize themselves from this physical world? It's hard to dematerialize. And people are afraid because the whole instinct of every species is to stay in their body, no matter if it's a roach or a lion or a bird. They don't want to die. Nobody wants to die.
Right.
But Christ was talking about you become more alive when you die. He didn't want to use words like that. In Acts, Paul was saying, I die daily. He was speaking in metaphors too. People can have different experiences. If a gunshot wound or a stroke, they don't want to go that way because they don't know if they're going to come back. The majority of the people who die are not revived through through CPR. Most of them stay away. But those who die and come back, they can talk about this. And that's just in America when I said 20 million people have died and have come back. But what about in Japan? What about in China? What about in India? What about in Africa? The clinical death is taking place in those countries too.
Now, you mentioned clinical death experiences, which people have reported to in this country. You quoted a figure of 20 million people. Are there any other experiences that people have that could validate heaven or hell?
Yes. Those who die and they're out of the body, you can just travel anywhere. I just mentioned from New York to Atlanta because you're not restricted in that body by gravitational forces on this earth. You can just think and look in the sky and you go to the moon. You want to go to the moon, you can go visit the sun. The sun won't burn you. You can cross all of the stars. Some people cross all of those stars and they go into another higher dimension. Some go into a lower dimension too. I must mention this because you're living in a world of duality. And you have higher dimensions and you have lower dimensions. You have heavens, you have hells, higher heavens and lower forms of hell, depending on how you conduct it and live your life here. So those who have gone to hell also come back. And they say they try to straighten up because they don't want to go there again. Those who've gone to heaven, I'll give you one of the characters you can go on YouTube and research. Her name is Betty Eadie. She wrote about this experience of going into the heavens. When she went into the heavens, she had a wonderful experience. She could meet advanced spiritual beings, angels, administrators who have power and control in those different parts of those heavens. Just like you got political figures in this world. That world is an imitational expression, is a higher replica of this world that we experience here. The people that you meet there, they are more intelligent than the people here in the higher parts. They're more wise. They're more loving. They're more intelligent. That's the experience she had while she was in that world. She had so much love, she didn't want to come back. Those beings told her, it's not your time. You have to go back. She argued with them. She got on her knees and started wailing and crying like a little child. I don't want to go back. They said to her, you got children, you got several children, you got a husband. You got to go back and live out your destiny. She said, well, okay, if I have to do that, will I come back when I die? They said, yes. You have things to share with people there. Will I hold on to the memory? We'll give you part of the memory to hold back, to hold onto for yourself. You won't hold all of it because normally when you come back into this world, the memory starts fading and you develop a strange type of deja vu. All human beings have the experience of deja vu. A feeling that I've seen this before, I've been here before,
yes,
but they can't put their finger on it. But then there's some children, and I'll go into this subject matter a little later, who have specific memory as a child who they were at previous times. I'll go into that at a later date. I don't want to surprise you and shock you.
Yes, that's a shock, Professor.
Yes, I won't go into this dosage of knowledge. Any other questions you may have?
Yes. When you talk about the different religions that exist in this world, there are so many different religions, so many different interpretations of these religions. Other than the clinical death experiences, are there any other scientific ways to validate these experiences?
When you talk about validation, the only thing you have to validate anything is human attention. Human attention is a validation or a verificational instrument. When you take the attention and you use it in this world to validate something, you can be conscious of everything in this world and yet unconscious because your attention is upon me. I'm talking to you now. Or your attention can slip away. Oh, I got to get my car. It's running. Oh, I got to get here. You look at your watch. Your attention can go. It can move even now, but it moves in the head within this world. And if you have a more intensified awareness of something, you can magnify the experience. You can look around this room and you can say, oh, look at that clock on the wall. It's 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. You concentrating on the clock now. You become conscious of things. You can explore things and have a more magnified view of that phenomenon. Attention operates like that. Similarly, it can operate inside like that. So it works the same way, outside, inside, in terms of validation, corroboration, and creating and eliminating all doubt. Discoveries that are made here by scientists, they constantly run experiments to see if they're wrong, like Edison. Or they come up with different invention and see if the airplane will fly. They put gadgets together, like Ford, automobile. Will it drive or will it blow up? They create explosion, they create medicine. They're doing all kinds of things, and they try to validate it with running an experiment to see if their knowledge lines up or if their theory lines up with the validation or the corroboration of that experience.
So with spirituality, how does that differ to religion? Religion, you're saying, is basically an interpretation, but spirituality is an experience.
Yes. Spirituality is a direct experience with validation. It's not an illusional, emotional, jumping up and down type of an experience. It's not like that.
But when people have these experiences, don't they have to follow a certain type of faith, Christ, Buddhism, Judaism?
I just told you people may not believe in any of these things. And somebody shoot them, they have the experience. You can be stabbed and you have an experience. But so you may not go too far in the experience. Those who go farther up in the experience normally get lucky and meet a human being who has had a vast experience in traveling in that dimension. And they're lucky enough to meet such a being, and he'll put certain restrictions on you and tell you what you have to do. Like, for instance, they'll say, you are in a world of duality, a world of pairs of opposite, which means sets of twos. All of the species, even though you got 8,400,000 species, they are all categorized into a classification. Violent species, non-violent species. Most human beings don't know that they are made to be a non-violent species.
What is a non-violent species, Professor?
A non-violent species has been set up and programmed through the DNA process to eat a certain way. Let me just go to the lower species. Cows, horses, sheep, deers, I can go on and on. These are non-violent species. A species is a life form that is genetically distinct and sexually isolated from each other, which means they cannot, a deer cannot meet with a cow and create a half form of that. So biologically separated in terms of genetics and sexuality. Right. So the species is basically in two categories. And everything that exists in the physical world operates in sets of twos. Night, day, gravity, anti-gravity, matter, antimatter. Everything expresses itself in twos. And there are non-violent species and violent species. The non-violent species They are similar to human beings in the sense that if you observe them scientifically, they all have flat teeth, just like we do. Cows, horses, deers, sheep. And when they get exhausted and tired, when they run, they sweat through the skin, just like we do. When they eat food, now you're getting validation. Your light bulb is going off by you saying, All human beings have the capacity for their light bulbs going off. And I'm going to give you an example. All of those who are listening or in the listening audience can conduct an experiment, which I tell them to conduct. I must conduct it with you. But let me go on. When the nonviolent species eat, their mouth moves in a circle. They chew their food and masticate their food in a circle. They also have 1,000 to 2,000% less hydrochloric acid in their system. Hydrochloric acid is so strong, it can burn a hole through wood, through metal, through rocks, different kinds of things. That hydrochloric acid is in a smaller expression in the human beings and in the nonviolent species. I can go on with other biological and chemical differences, but let's look at the violent species. The violent species, they have sharp teeth, scissors-like teeth. Their mouth can only go up and down. They cannot move in a circle. You got cats, you got lions, you got tigers, you got wolves. Their mouth can only go up and down. And when they eat food, they eat violent food. They go and kill something. They made to be killers. They made to kill different forms of life in order to live.
Right.
So when they murder something, if a wolf or a tiger go and capture a deer, the tiger can eat the deer on the spot. It doesn't have to cook it. It's made to eat raw food. And its biological system is structured in such a way that it's got 1,000 to 2,000% more hydrochloric acid in its stomach in order to rapidly digest the food, while the nonviolent animal slowly digests their nonviolent food. When I said nonviolent food, the nonviolent species eat food that doesn't try to run away from them when they try to eat it. They only eat plant-based food. Even if you put a delicious meat dish, it can be, I don't care what kind of dish, it can be barbecue steak, hamburger, it can
Chicken
be
wings.
Chicken wings, yes. It can be a delicious roasted turkey, and you put it on a nice white tablecloth and put it on the ground. The horse will bypass that. No matter how delicious it looks or smell, it goes and eats the grass because it follows the DNA structure of how it's been designed. We made the same way. Now let me give you an example of how we can recognize that we're a nonviolent species. And the whole audience out in the listening community should conduct this experiment and get back in touch with me. JR will tell you how you want to get in touch with me and go deeper into understanding the subject matter. I do lectures at different places, and I work with a different company. He'll go into this later. But if you want to get in touch, we have...
Yes, if you want to get in touch with Professor Brinson, he works with an organization called iSeek Institute. And if you want to get in touch with him, you can go to i-seek.org. That is i-seek.org, or you can contact the studio here. But go on, Professor.
Okay. What did I just say? My thought is drifting.
You were going to tell us and the studio audience about something that we should...
Okay, let me give you an experiment that they can participate in to validate what I'm saying. Once I said this, the animal species, all of the animal life, insect life, they know exactly what they should eat because they have a DNA molecular pattern which gives them a strange type of vibratory pulsation as to what they should eat. The horses, the cows, the deers, they know exactly they should eat something that doesn't run away from them. They eat plant-based food. The human being, let me give you an example. Do you drive an automobile, sir?
Yes.
Let's say if you're in an automobile and the listening audience should do this on other people without giving them the whole secret, and then you'll see what I'm going to predict will happen to this gentleman here. Say if you're in your automobile and you're riding down the road and you're extremely relaxed, very relaxed, and you're driving. Without thinking, JR, if an animal runs in front of your car, what is your first instinct?
You put on brakes. You swerve.
But you're frowning. But when the animal's beautifully wrapped in lettuce and mustard and cheese, what do?
Of course you eat it, Professor.
Why do you eat it? You eat it because your mother messed you up as a baby. Most people in America have been messed up by their parents, by the educational system, by the whole restaurant and mad crave for delicious food, and they develop a taste bud, which they become addicted to and grow into. So on the 4th of July, give me some barbecue. Or on Sunday, the minister say, I want some Kentucky Fried Chicken or some kind of chicken dish. So we eat meat food based on taste. And we have to cook it. You can't eat it raw. The animals that kill, they can eat it raw. They can even eat the bones. They can drink the blood. They can get the hairs. And their systems are made not to vomit. If we tried that, we'll vomit. And the meat can be contaminated, but their system got more enzymes and rapid digestion and rapid immune system where they can get this disease food, if it's disease, out of their system quickly and be protected. We eat that food, and if our immune system is not as strong as theirs, it can get contaminated and we can develop early diseases. Diabetes can come from this by overeating. The blood pressure can go up by eating a certain way. We can become unhealthy with all kinds of bacteria. People develop cancer. They develop all kinds of diseases in the body as a result of eating what nature had not intended for them to eat. They have a tendency, when I talk to different audience, of thinking that they are more intelligent than nature. And I say, who gave you the DNA? Who structured your body? You don't have to say it's God, but it's somebody other than you, or some force, some higher power. They made you a nonviolent species. Compare yourself with the horses, with the cows. We are strange beings. When the cows or the horses get mad, they may protect themselves by kicking something or, doing a little fighting, but they're not trying to kill that species and eat it.
No, I've never seen a horse or a cow injure anybody.
Because they don't have strong claws. These animals they can kill, they can run fast. They can outrun the prey in which they're seeking. They've been made to be killers. If they kill even a human being, no lawyer is going to defend them in court. The judge would say this is silly. But if you go pick up a gun, something unnatural, which you're not made to use, people who are in the gun industry have invented these different types of gadgets in order to harm other people or animals. And they know they can't go and kill an animal on their own. They can't even catch a squirrel.
No, you're right, Professor.
And so they do these things, and people talking about when individuals die in the community, let's practice margin and trying to reduce violence. One of the simplest and easiest ways to reduce violence is to change the educational system or to change the consciousness of a human being by merely understanding that he or she is a nonviolent species.
So what you're saying, Professor, is what we eat can have an effect on ourselves?
Food can affect not only the physical body, it can affect your mental self or your mental body, and it can affect your sensory body, and it can affect your spiritual body to some extent. And food can affect your attention. People who eat plant-based food, there have been experiments in Appleton, Wisconsin. It started off there. And also at Lehigh University. There have been professors who have done experiments in different parts of America, as well as England, Oxford, Switzerland, where they have fed certain individuals and put them on a plant-based diet. And in Appleton, Wisconsin, which is a high school there, they changed their feeding in the lunchroom to mostly a plant-based food. And they were eating healthier foods. Prior to eating the healthier foods, the students were jumping all around, could not be still, could not be quiet. They could not put their attention on their studies. They were dropping out of school. They were getting into drugs because they were agitated and had a lot of anxiety. So food that you eat which create anxiety and stress animals eat these types of food, they need that stress, they need that anger in order to kill. So they become almost animal-like, but not totally animal-like. And so when they switched over to a plant-based diet, they calmed down. And their grades went up. They stopped dropping out of school. They stopped doing drugs. And this research we didn't do, you could discover it on YouTube. If you want to know more about it, you can contact the station here or get in touch with
the Ask the Professor show?
Yes, and you can learn more about these things. But just to give you a brief definition, food can affect your attention, it can affect your body, everything, and as well as your mind. Those individuals in the past, if you study them, the great minds, the great geniuses that produce certain things in this world, great discoverers, many of them, not all of them, but many of them, ate nonviolent food.
Nonviolent? You mean...
Plant-based food. Einstein, Sir Isaac Newton, Plato, Aristotle, Descartes, Shakespeare, Emerson, Edison.
They all ate plant-based?
They all ate plant-based food without meeting each other. They must have gotten this aha experience that you had when you laughed. If these individuals in the audience ask people about this example of being in an automobile, their light bulbs will go off, they'll laugh at their contradiction, and they'll see in an instant that they're made to eat nonviolent food. But they'll try to laugh it off. But many of them, sometimes because of their strong addiction, due to years of practicing eating meat, they become like heroin addicts. They're like addicted to meat. And it's hard to control it unless they eat meat methadones or meat substitute. And plant-based food is going through a revolutionary stage today. There are a lot of restaurants engaging in eating and serving plant-based food. I'll give you a couple of them. Burger King, last year, not too long ago, less than a year, opened up an Impossible Burger that's been on the market. And they're selling the Impossible Burger in their restaurants. And it's basically made for meat eaters. Meat eaters run into the restaurant and eat plant-based food knowing that plants don't have cholesterol, they don't create high blood pressure, you can lose weight.
But Professor, people would say that, you know, these veggie burgers and things like that, they're bland, they don't taste good.
You're correct. But the company that ended up producing Impossible Burger, you cannot tell the difference. Many meat eaters say, this tastes like real stuff. They peel it, it looks like it, smell like it, chew like it. They say, is this real meat? And it's not made with any meat. It's made entirely from plants. Just like Dr. Carver, the vegetarian, the nonviolent eater who lived during the 18 and 1900s. He was a black scientist. He ate nothing but plant-based food.
He too ate plant-based food?
Yes. And he would spend all of his time studying plants. He put his attention like a fanatical maniac on peanut plants, sweet potato plants, and other kinds of plants. And he was able to, with his concentration of attention, come up with over 300 different inventions and discoveries from the peanut plant alone. He came up with rubber, dyes, all kinds of different items, medicine. And he put his attention on the sweet potato plant and came up with over 100 different discoveries and inventions. Wow. He was considered a great scientist. But we all have that wow experience if we can go just a little bit inside this body. You don't have to go very far. School's whole purpose is to teach you how to concentrate attention on things. And if you slip just a little bit inside, just a little bit, knowledge will gush from within yourself to yourself. But you'll think it's coming from the outside. You'll go and say, thank you, teacher. You really put me through this rigor. Not knowing that she just merely lit up your light bulb. Just like I gave you a little light up when I said an animal runs in front of your path. I didn't do anything. You just concentrated a little bit and saw that, oh, I shouldn't be killing animals.
So since you're an educated professor, what is the purpose of education? People go to school for different things, to be a doctor, a lawyer. What is the purpose of education?
Education is to get you in touch with yourself. If you go back into the early days when civilization was young and people were innocent, and they would go to school. Only a few could go because most people were putting all their attention on physical survival. I got to get something to eat, maybe I go plant some food. They went into that, and they didn't live too long. During the time of Christ, the average life was in the 30s, 32, 33. People died because there were no hospitals. Short. Yes. People died because there was no hospitals. They didn't understand medicine. There was no educational system. But the rich people had tutors to come in and tutor their children and tutor themselves. And those tutors would spend time with these rich people and tell them what was the real purpose of education and why you should pursue it. Education, original purpose, was to get you to know who you are, to get you to know who yourself is. And they started out with looking at the physical body. They would study subjects like anatomy of the body. They would give you certain exercises in terms of calisthenics, competition. They would give you certain things to do like how you should eat. And the main thing about teaching you about the physical body was to understand that this body is not you. It's a garment that you wear. It's a suit, a clothing that cover up your real self. That's what they taught. And they said you got to know your real self. And they were trying to capture your attention.
So is your real self that body that those clinical death experience individuals said?
Yes.
Is that the spirit?
That is another garment that covers up the higher form of yourself. You have several garments. Like right now you have on a vest, you have on a shirt, you have on a t-shirt. You got several garments inside this body. If you take off this jacket, you still have a shirt. That shirt would be a higher form of yourself because yourself has a strong tendency to identify with the vehicle in which you're operating in. If you go into the ocean, to give you an example, and you get into one of these special diving suits where you can breathe in the ocean, you know when you get into that ocean that that suit is not you. But when you take birth as a baby, you grow up thinking that that physical body is yourself. And so when you go to a teacher who understands this, they would teach children in an early age in these rich families that the first experience you must come to the conclusion based on your own reasoning that this body is not you. And they would say if you cut off your arm, cut off your leg, you can still operate as a human being, but you'll know that you'll still be the same person without the arm, without the legs. So you make a discovery through imagination that the arm, the legs are not you. Then they teach you also to discover that you're not the physical body they would give, but you'd have to go to higher teachers. They had different types of tutors, and the tutors would teach you different subjects about yourself.
Oh, that's fascinating, Professor. When you say attention, how is attention utilized to find your real self?
Attention is very simple. There was one highly developed individual. He said, to find your real self is so simple. You just pluck from here and pluck there. You change the direction or flow of your attention. The attention is going in one direction, outside. You pluck it from outside and put it inside. The closer you get to inside, the closer you get to your real self. And that's a process that you have to go through to learn. Just like if you go to a elementary school teacher to learn arithmetic, that teacher will tell you to be quiet, sit down, be still. What's 2 plus 2? You'll learn that. Then she'll teach you 2 times 2 is what? You'll say 2 times 2 is 4. You'll learn that.
Right.
Then they'll teach you your multiplication facts. Then they'll teach you, as you go higher up, algebra. Then you'll learn geometry, trigonometry, calculus. So you learn different higher subjects. But as you learn different subjects, you have to concentrate more into those numerical patterns and learn the logic of those patterns. So similarly, you got to meet a teacher who's advanced in this study of concentrating attention upon himself or herself. And that requires great luck. You cannot find such a teacher these days because most people are going to school to learn how to make money. That is one of the predominant things that occupy their attention in this world. How can I make more money? The more you learn is the more you earn. The more you earn. Right. So people are acquiring They're looking to acquire things. More pleasure, more comfort. Any other questions?
Yes, Professor. On the subject, going back to Scripture and religion, what other aspects would you say the interpretation may be wrong on?
Anything that you cannot verify in terms of direct personal experience, you should hold a form of skepticism in your head. Don't get rigidly convinced to the point where you become stubbornly entrenched in a prejudicial thought in your head without having verification and experience. There's nothing wrong with thinking a certain way. Hold a thought lightly. Be fluid. Be ready to drop that thought if you get verification. That's what scientists do. They come up with theories, and after they investigate and try to validate something, they get rid of the theory.
Right, Professor, but the Bible has been around for a long time, and there are scholars who looked at these subjects.
Yes.
So
you're dealing with a whole new subject of hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is trying to arrive at the right interpretation of scriptures. Scriptures were written long ago, and I can give you an example. Let me give you a phrase today, which is easy for people to interpret. You see that lady over there? She got a hole in her stocking. I won't say a hole, I would say she got a run in her stocking. If the person read about a run in her stocking 2,000 years from now, they would say, how can a stocking run? Or, because run got several definitions in the dictionary. If I say, take this piece of paper and run it off on that machine, you say, a paper can't run. What are you giving me such a stupid suggestion? Or if I say, man, don't run me down, it means chase me down. Or he tried to run me over in the automobile. A run can mean harassing, running you down. It can mean actually running you over with a car. It can have different definition depending on the circumstances. So the Bible was said in a certain context. How do you interpret the context?
Wait, Professor. So you're saying that Jesus had, because I know you've written books on this subject, Jesus had one type of conversation with his disciples and another for the masses?
Yes. He spoke in allegories and in metaphors with the masses. He hinted at the spiritual teaching because he did not come from them. In the Bible it says, I've chosen you, you've not chosen me. And one of his disciples in one of the scriptures in the gospel, said to Christ, why do you speak in parables to the masses? Why do you give us a different interpretation when we're in private? And he says in one of the gospel in Matthew's, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. To them it is not given. It is given unto you. Even the righteous men, even the prophets and the holy men will not get what you get. You will get far more than what they contemplated. And they were prophets who could see in the time. You will go way beyond them in the spiritual world. The spiritual world got different gradation. It's got elementary schools in the spiritual world. Just when you get out of the body, you're in the elementary school. You think you're in the heavens, which is part of the elementary schools. They got higher heavens. You can go to high school in those worlds, higher than just like in this world, they have high schools, colleges. Yes. You can do graduate work, postgraduate work. You can go to college levels. You can go to graduate levels in the higher world. You can go to postgraduate level. You actually want to become a spiritual valedictorian. Christ was one of these high beings who was highly beloved by his Father. And so the different religions got different founders who went to different levels in the spiritual dimension. And we get confused when we read these scriptures. And you can misinterpret them because you're going by hearsay, secondhand information. You don't know, you don't have a way to validate it. And that's the confusion. So the religion tend to split into different sects and different forms. And they like evolving and splitting all the time.
So if you had to give your interpretation of the Bible and Jesus, because the Christianity has so many different subsects and interpretations. Among that, they have different interpretations. Different ministers have their own way of expressing things. So if you had to put a needle through the Bible, what would the message be that Jesus gave at that time?
Jesus' message was very simple. love me with all your mind, heart, and soul. He was saying, love God. But he said, you have to love me more than your mother, your brother, and your sister. Because if you fall in love with the physical form of that being who's walking around, he was not talking about ordinary love. He was talking about ridiculous love.
Monomaniac love.
Yeah, monomaniacal love. And people have this experience in this world. If you go and investigate different ladies who are falling madly in love with a man, they take all kind of abuse. They want that man at the cost of anything. Some of them will commit suicide. They're so much in love because love gives them happiness and joy. They experience intense joy when they love. And they forget about the man slapping them, mistreating them, and whipping them. And they're hoping that the man will change. Men can have the same experience, but men are a little bit more cautious. They're more reluctant. And if they fall in love, they can become couch potatoes. Open up their wallets, give the woman everything. They made like that. And so if they fall deeply in love, they can end up killing themselves or killing the woman. You see, that's the danger. And so these individuals who come here, they want ridiculous love like that. And it's hard to love a theoretical expression of God or an imaginative expression because you cannot love the clouds. You cannot love something you cannot see like that. You can like it, but you cannot love it with an insanity type of expression.
In the Bible, it states that Jesus will be coming back for a second coming.
Yes, but people think they'll recognize him. They think he'll come on the cloud, but he may come just like he did before, in a different body, with a different image, in a different face. Should we take an intermission?
So if you want to get Professor, you can always reach him by calling the studio. If you want to contact him directly, you can go to iSeek. That is i-seek.org. He works with iSeek Institute. Thank you very much, Professor, for coming today, and it's been very, very, very interesting conversation we've had here.
I enjoyed being with you, and I hope the listening audience get in contact with us by contacting the station here or contacting iSeek.org. And we offer different classes and things that they may want to know, or they can ask free questions of me. I'm available. In my extremely busy schedule, I'll make time to give them some of this precious attention, which I have and which they have, if they're seeking this type of awareness. Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for watching us today. Ask the Professor.